Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes, where we take you behind the curtain and inside the rooms where decisions are made. Today, we're joined by returning guest and friend of the show, Maryland State Senator William Bill Folden, fresh off his primary victory and headed to the general election. We discuss what's it like serving in a legislature dominated by a Democratic supermajority, Maryland's latest gerrymandering battle, the changing political landscape in Frederick County, and some fascinating behind-the-scenes election stories you won't hear anywhere else. Now let's get into it. Welcome to Mid-Maryland Votes. I'm your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we have a very special guest tonight. We have Senator William Bill Folden. Senator Folden, welcome to the program.
Hey, guys. Good to see you.
Fresh off your primary victory, you kicked about 100% of that ass.
How about that?
That's great.
It's a lot better when you don't have a primary.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to mention that. I mean, you mentioned you ran unopposed, but that's good. You got 100% of the vote.
Yes, sir.
Now, obviously, you've done very well over the last couple of elections, and you've won by landslides in the first election. So, What do you attribute your success to?
Just being homegrown. I'm from this community. I grew up here. I went to school here all through high school. I left to go in the military, and I came back, and I wanted to police where I grew up. And so I came back home and started my family and got active in coaching and then ran the youth football, cheerleading, and lacrosse league, and really turned around a fledgling program and made it, took them to championships. So when you do those things and you're involving kids and their parents and their grandparents, and they see the changes that you're making for safety and just setting the standard high, not celebrating the idea that everybody gets a trophy, but to not celebrate mediocrity, but to strive for excellence. I think that has meaning to people. And I think that, that's when people really started saying, hey, you should think about office. And I kind of laughed it off. And well, I guess here I am still trying to laugh it off and in the Senate. Well, every time you go down to Annapolis, I'm sure you laugh it off or try to anyway. Either that or cry. Yeah. So, Bill, you're District 4, which is Frederick County mostly, right? Yeah.
Can you describe the area that it encompasses for our viewers?
Yeah, sure. So it's basically all of Frederick County with like a big donut around the city of Frederick. They go down, District 3 goes down and captures a good part of Urbana as well. They wanted that to be as solidly blue and not able to be contested as possible in the last redistricting session, and they did that. And then we go have everything else up around the north side, all the way up and kind of around Thurmont, and then areas north of Thurmont and Thurmont, the town itself, go into District 2 now, into Washington County. 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, this district that we're in was a plus 24R Republican, very strong Republican leaning. And now, after the 2022 redistricting, that fell to a plus 9R.
Obviously a huge issue in the state of Maryland, something where they're even the Democrats, I believe, are attempting to put on a referendum that could change the state constitution.
Yes.
What are your thoughts or your comments regarding the redistricting? Because it is a history-changing event, actually, of that magnitude.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just sum it up real plain and simple for you. I mean, the idea that any elected should geographically design a district to select their voters is absolutely contrary to what our founding fathers wanted. Your electeds were supposed to be of the people, by the people, and chosen along natural geographic boundaries that made sense, not gerrymandered to the degree that it looks like a broken pterodactyl wing or a pterodactyl with a broken wing, so that they can keep large concentrations of metropolitan areas and just kind of go out and grab large swaths of rural areas, and they're not representative of those people. And so that's kind of, it's elected should never be choosing their voters. The voters should always be choosing their electeds.
And I think statistically that proves out. I mean, 34% of Marylanders identify as Republican, and we have zero representation in certain aspects of state government because we've been gerrymandered out.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, you know, if you look at the congressional districts, especially, we have 1 of 8, and you know, the person that is the current congresswoman of our district is she doesn't even live in the district, and neither did her predecessor. You know, that's a failure on the part of the federal electoral system to not mandate that they live, because you're supposed to be representative of that district, and especially when you have Potomac mixed with Allegheny and Garrett County.
Yeah, an independent study, you know, by a nonpartisan group, claimed that Maryland had the most gerrymandered voting map of any state in the union.
Yeah, and they're trying to make it worse.
One of the effects of the gerrymandering, aside from the fact that you have these states where you may have 40%, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, but you'll have 40% of voters of one particular political party, the gerrymandering occurs, and maybe 12% of the representatives for the state are of that political party, despite 40% of voters, right? So it takes away the voice of the people. But another thing that I've heard stated is that the more gerrymandered a state is, a community is, the more extreme it makes the politicians, the electeds that come out of that community, and you're not getting, let's call it, common sense.
Oh, I think we've just seen that even in these primaries, and not just in Maryland, but you know, around the country. But you know, Maryland got hit pretty hard with socialist-like movement. There's an undercurrent happening. I mean, look at Montgomery County. Oh my goodness, it's going to be a mess. That county executive is horrible.
Jawando.
Yep, he's going to be a
holy smokes.
A lot of problems. You know, the idea that the government is supposed to do all these things for you is contrary to what our founding fathers wanted. You know, they wanted the government out of our pockets, out of our lives, let us have our freedoms, and give us the opportunity to flourish, to be entrepreneurs, to be businessmen and women, to have these successes. And I mean, look, and it's not just the Jawando guy. I mean, look, a very dear friend of mine in the Maryland Senate is Senator Nancy King. I absolutely adore her. I think she's a wonderful representative. She's a kind of a blue dog Democrat, easy to talk to, very conscious of her decisions, the impacts around them. It was very important to have her on budget and tax because she had the understanding of the impacts. That voice of reason is gone. She lost to a very much socialist person in the primary. Poor voter turnout. It's almost like the Democrats right now are trying to eat their own. And it should be concerning for anyone in Maryland when there's people trying to move the needle further left.
If you're an incumbent Democrat and somebody is primarying against you, it's because the party doesn't like you. They want you out.
Yeah, I mean, and it's this. There's that undercurrent. These people are taking a hold of this socialist ideology that it's somehow, you know, and it's never worked, not once. It doesn't work.
Now, Bill, you brought up a really good point, because just like you have a relationship with this moderate Democrat, you know, there's lots of moderate Democrats out there, but they've lost control of their party. Their party has left them and has gone to this socialist swing. So how do we get these you know, regular people, Democrats, back on board with, you know, the Constitution, for instance?
You know, I would even say that, like Senator Ferguson, I would say, you know, the president of the Senate, as best he can, he does try to still at least remain in the middle of the road and try to bring the sides together and have those dialogues. But his own party is, like you said, his own party that he grew up in, that he, you know, has had many successes in, is not the party of today. And they're making it very difficult for someone like him, because, I mean, he had his own primary, the president of the Senate. And it was someone that, you know, the governor wasn't coming out and supporting him. It was almost like they were propping this guy up, like you said, because he wasn't extreme enough to the left. And, you know, that should be concerning to everyone, because while I don't agree with everything that the Senate president did or does, I do value and appreciate the idea that we can still have that dialogue, that we can have those discussions, tough discussions. We can agree to disagree. We can have disagreements, Our chambers, our institution is about civil discourse, and the idea that collectively we make good ideas great ideas, or we take terrible ideas and do what we can to, spell out how bad and impactful they're going to be negatively for our citizens, and show them the errors of the way. I mean, let's face it, they have the supermajority. Again, the map has a lot to do with that, but it's not good when they're targeting each other. It helps us because it points out the flaws of some of their own ideology. And I think we've seen that even again, with David Trone and Congressman Delaney.
But even on the local level, those local school board elections, the candidates endorsed by the Democratic Socialists of America here locally in Frederick County did better than those who were endorsed by the teachers union, which is a shocking, because the teachers union more or less completely controls the school boards. So for the Democratic Socialists of America, for their endorsement to now mean more. And then also there was the county commissioner, Brad Young, a very well-known, from what I understand, a very well-known, respected, moderate Democrat, who was replaced in his primary by a socialist. This is tremendous. I mean, has the Democratic Party in Maryland been taken over already? Has it already happened?
Look, they've lost their way. My hope is that a lot of moderate or conservative Democrats will find themselves as moderate Republicans now. And I think we're seeing some of that movement because there's a lot of concern. I mean, everybody is impacted by the taxes, fees, and hikes that we're seeing. Everybody. There's no one that's not impacted by that.
3,000 new taxes and fees since Governor Moore has taken office. 3,000, not $3,000, 3,000 new fees and taxes. I just did the VEIP emissions for my vehicle. It's triple what it was a year ago.
Yeah, it's a farce.
It's ridiculous.
It's all money grab.
Yeah, tire taxes. Car
tires get triple taxed. Tires get taxed 3 times in this state. I tell everybody, buy your tires out of the state. I mean, look, they're increasing property valuations and basically amassing unrealized gains and holding it against people as leverage, and that they pay more on a property value that is only on paper. Mm-hmm. So it's literally something that is made up off of a market trend. It should never be that. It should be what you purchase it at. It should be there. If you refinance, if you do one of those things you purchase, then that's where it's been and that's where it should be. But this idea that they're coming around and trying to, hit everybody up for 10 to 20% if you didn't do the homestead exemption, they're really trying to hammer these people. And we're seeing the effects of that. The impacts are people are leaving Maryland.
And there are individuals who, like you said, with that who are not part of the homestead exemption that have had 25% increases in their property taxes because so many people are unaware of it. Can you explain this homestead exemption so that homeowners that are listening could actually take advantage of it for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the idea that if you live in the home that you're currently mortgaging and that you claim that as your homestead, and they cannot raise it more than 10% from one year to the next. Now, that's not saying that they can't do their best to try to do it 3 years in a row. It was only ever done, a reassessment was usually done if you sold your property, refinanced, something to that effect. But now, SDAT, the State Department of Assessment and Taxation, has been directed or done it upon themselves to cleverly say, you know what, we're going to break the state up in thirds, and every third year we're going to reevaluate people's property values.
And I believe on a previous episode, you referred to that system as the greatest fraud financially upon the taxpayers of Maryland. Is that system right there?
Yeah, it's legalized theft. That is absolutely. You get 0 extra services out of your heightened taxes, none. And Maryland does not have a revenue problem. Maryland has a spending problem. And if they could stop spending, people wouldn't have to jack up people's property valuations on paper.
And to your point, Bill, 300,000 people have left Maryland over the last 10 years, but especially they're losing 3%. We're losing 3% of our population every year for the last 3 years.
Yeah. And look, Montgomery County is a wonderful, poor example of mismanagement of leadership, an enrollment drop in their public schools of 10,000 students. Every county gets their disbursement from the state government based on their student enrollment. They've lost 10,000 students. That's pretty impactful when it's about $20,000 or $23,000 per student. It's a lot of money that Montgomery County is getting ready to be losing. Mark and I have had the discussion about speed cameras and other things on the sidebar, and I'm not a speed camera guy. I'm just not. I don't like big government. I don't like the idea that they're out there watching people, what happens to the information, data tracking, all these things. But, you know, Montgomery County, man, they love speed cameras. They love stop sign cameras. They love red light cameras. They love them all.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that this insatiable hunger for money that governments can get to as they go down these socialist roads, that in Democratic run Pennsylvania, they have twice the population. They have 5 times the size of the road system. And their budget is essentially the same as Maryland's, with all the same services, lower crime, lower drug trade, all the same services just as effective, essentially less than half the tax dollars per person.
Yeah. Also, their governor is a moderate Democrat, so not a socialist.
Correct.
But then again, we don't really know what Governor Moore is, because, you know, he changes every week. It's a new Governor Moore. You have no idea what you're dealing with anymore.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed about that. I really had, I'll be honest, I had high hopes for the governor. You know, I saw him coming in as a military man, as someone that was well educated, well versed. He's an excellent orator. I just charismatic. I mean, he had all these checks, right? Check, check, check. Sadly, I've learned that he is not a leader of men. Apparently, he just keeps failing at every turn. And I don't know if it's just getting bad advice from his advisors or these bureaucrats, but you know, the governor's got to do better, and he's got to do, ironically, more to help Maryland get through these difficult times. And right now, we're facing a pretty significant structural deficit that is not going to be an easy one with a Democratic governor in the office to whittle down.
So you mentioned the governor, and he's running now against, it looks like it's going to be Dan Cox, who is a Trump-endorsed Republican, what most people would call a hardcore Republican. What do you think his chances are of winning the gubernatorial election in Maryland?
Statistically, I hope that we do a lot better than we did 4 years ago. I don't know that he had Trump's endorsement 4 years ago. I don't know that he has it this time. I know that he's trying to work out and you know, reach out extend the olive branch to Larry Hogan, trying to find that, maybe soften his edges on some of these issues, because Maryland's hurting, and even strong Democrats are recognizing that Maryland's hurting. Substantive measures, not just propaganda statements, but solutions with the problems that are being put out there. And when we do that, and we do that collectively as a party, I think we'll see that pendulum start to come back, even in spite of a lot of the changes happening within the Democratic Party. Because I think, you know, Ronald Reagan wasn't too far off when he said, you know, we're one generation away from losing, you know, this democracy, and people better take heed to what they're seeing with these socialists.
The 110-year history of socialism in dozens of other countries, they've all had the exact same horrific results. Do you think, are you seeing the Democratic establishment in Annapolis supporting this, or do you think that they are getting as washed away in this as the rest of us are?
I think the Democratic establishment doesn't know what to do. I think they're terrified of what they're seeing. They don't like what's on the right. Accountability and law enforcement and the rule of law being, you know, the law of the land, and enforcing those laws and holding people accountable, and, you know, asking for transparency in matters involving public tax dollars. When you've got Republicans in Annapolis, and I was one of them, standing up against the governor cutting DDA funds.
Yes.
That's concerning. That should be concerning to any Marylander. The most vulnerable people in our communities were losing 50% of their funding. These people, the most vulnerable in our communities, the people that need the help of the government because of having someone with severe disabilities are being impacted even on top of all the other fees and taxes that we're seeing. That is absolutely reckless. We should be asking for 5% cuts, 10% cuts in our departments from our department secretaries before we ever would go and grab 200 million from DDA. And these are the most vulnerable in our community that actually the government is supposed to be there to help these families.
Where is all this money going? If we're not spending it on those individuals that are literally life and death to receive the funding, that we definitely have enough money to provide for them. And if we're taking money away from the all important green energy initiatives in order to fund what? We're taking this money away. These tax dollars are skyrocketing. People are leaving Maryland in droves because of all of these issues, this money going to the state. And where is it going when it gets there?
The green energy programs have created a significant hamstring, if you will, of our economy. There was a lot of money directed in that, a lot of lobbyists pushing these things, a lot of deadlines put in place that there had to be certain transitions to green energy type services, that just the technology wasn't there. And it was reckless in how they did it. And it was like they were going to run down the hallway, scissors point up, and it didn't matter. And so now we're seeing the effects and the impacts of some of that wasteful spending. When we're talking about, energy costs, the state of Maryland closed 10 coal-fired power producing plants. And you know what their solution was, what they replaced them with to help our energy costs? Nothing. They had no replacement. You can't take energy off the grid without having a replacement in place, not just an idea, but an actual viable replacement.
And clear evidence that this green initiative for power is a complete political grandstanding is the fact that we are importing power now from Pennsylvania and West Virginia. And of course, they're using coal. And so, we're importing power cost to the citizens and shutting down our own plants in some kind of virtue signaling move that these politicians think is going to, is going to get them reelected, I guess.
Yeah, and we're seeing that in Frederick County, especially with the PJM power line coming through with the MPRP project, that it's basically like a large extension cord from New Jersey all the way across down through Pennsylvania, Baltimore County, Carroll County, Frederick County into Virginia. Maryland will see less than 3% of that return, but we will be straddled with the most significant impact to our environment, to our ag businesses, to the communities, sight lines. It's not okay. Look, we could require them to bury this thing. It'll cost twice as much. But you know what? They keep saying, well, it's not costing taxpayers anything. It's not costing taxpayers anything. Yeah, it's going to be an end rate user fee. And it's all benefiting Virginia. It's all going to Old Dominion. So why are we going to be the ones that are getting a large extension cord tethered across our state and county with zero return on that significant $550 million investment to do that with no cost to the taxpayers, but everybody's going to be hit in the pocketbook? It's not okay how they did it. They did it in a very secretive manner, not transparent at all. And, now the governor has pressed a pause button on that because he saw how politically unfavorable it was. He asked the PSC to hold it until February. And that's pretty neat because, I don't know, what's between now and February?
Yeah, what's going on? What events might be happening?
There's something. I'll think of it. Something around November, I feel like.
And so therefore in February, it's just going to get the green light again. And we're going to have a power cord draped over Maryland that we're paying for. And we're not going to see the benefit of.
If I was a betting man, I'd say that's the case.
Yeah. And one of the guests that we had on in a previous show talking about this subject stated that he would love to know whose pockets got lined. And I guess what he was referring to is what you mentioned a moment ago, which is the special interests that are basically essentially paying or getting politicians to approve this. Can you explain how that works? So many of these programs, there actually are people benefiting, essentially, or organizations benefiting off of the suffering of the people in these various areas. Can you explain the system that promotes this type of voting and behavior from politicians?
I mean, you have lobbyists that come in and they're petitioning and they ask for certain consideration for their projects, for their plans, for their legislation. And, they'll promise to, I'm sure there's promises to donate to their campaign. There's promises to, help things within their district. There's just, it's a sad state of affairs that we live in. And this is one of the things, now this doesn't happen at the state level because I just don't see it. If it does, I'm very ignorant to it. But what we see a lot of, and look at the value of our U.S. House of Representatives and Senators. Look at their self-worth. And this is one of my pet peeves that I've always had, a grievance that I've really expressed that really needs to be investigated, and that is the idea. It's basically you and I would be arrested for insider trading, but there are certain Congress members, congressional members who sit in these privileged conversations, in these meetings with subcommittees. They hear who's getting contracts, who's not, and then all of a sudden they're going and they're buying up a lot of that stock. And then in a couple weeks, couple months, it's getting announced that this is a big contract coming to this group. And all of a sudden that stock is worth significantly more. That's criminal. And we need to, as citizens, we should ask and demand better of our electeds. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. If you or I did that in private enterprise, private business, we'd be arrested.
A great example of that is Martha Stewart. She was busted for insider trading, did 2 years in a federal penitentiary. I mean, think about it.
Yeah,
I mean, she served half of the stuff that AOC and Ilhan Omar are alleged to have done.
I said Pelosi's her wealth has gone up exponentially.
Yeah, I mean it's both sides of the house, though. I mean, we got to be.
It is.
There's a lot of Republicans that are doing the insider trading as well. And
you're not wrong, but it's not okay. And so and I'll ask you again. We just had one of the most expensive primaries in our country, definitely in our state, between David Trone and April Delaney. Mm-hmm. I think they're saying he spent like $25 million on this one. Mm-hmm. $25 million and lost. He spent $62 million 2 years ago and lost the Senate race. $90 million in 2 years on 2 lost races. As a simpleton, mm-hmm. Where's the ROI on that? Where's your return on investment?
Yeah, his $200,000 a year salary in about 10,000 years, he'll make all that money back.
Yeah, exactly. So doesn't it make you think and stop and pause for a moment to say, what is so valuable there? It's more than power.
I mean, there are some conspiracy theorists out there, or maybe just people who have taken a look at the public records and observed that when he's in office, some of the laws that he passes tend to be favorable towards his business.
Who?
David Trone.
Oh, David Trone.
He owns a very, very large alcohol distribution company.
Maybe he should have offered like a shot of whiskey to every voter coming in the door. You know what I'm saying? Hey, here's a shot of Jameson. Take a vote for me.
Yeah.
Probably would have had better results. 2 billionaires competing for a seat that pays about $200,000.
We are far beyond the idea of the people and for the people.
Bill, you've won your primary, and now we're headed towards the general election. If people want to jump on board and help Bill Folden get into that Senate seat, how do they do it?
You can log on. You can check me out at senatorfolden.com. You can, I've got a lot of activities coming up. We're going to be out there. Reach out, ask for a sign. Contributions are always important. It's just the Senate president isn't real happy with me because I apparently killed a little over 40 bills on sine die, and I stand by that because like I told him, my constituents aren't going to be upset about more bad bills failing. And then I stood up and explained every one of my votes because you get 2 minutes to do that. And every time I did that, it just slowed this down. It put a big cog in the system. And, he summed it up best. He told me a long time ago, the physics of politics is a real thing. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. At that time, he was saying that about me, about trying to kill a bill. Well, this time, the physics of politics was real. He didn't keep his word to me. He didn't give our sheriff, the office of sheriff, a salary increase commensurate with that responsibility, that position.
But just the pay of politicians, such as the sheriff, that is not the only office I've heard that about. I mean, the county commissioners in Washington County about 20 years ago got paid the same as public school teachers, which was in the high 30s. Now public school teachers are being paid in the 60s, and the pay of county commissioners is still in the 30s. So it's not only the sheriff's offices that deal with that.
There's a certain amount of responsibility with the county commissioners, the county council. They're in the forward facing the public every week. And you want to find good, strong candidates that have an education, that have a background to be able to bring forward good ideas and substantive measures and be able to articulate and pass them for the benefit of the people. And when we keep the salary really, really low, we don't see that type of changeover because people aren't going to leave private enterprise to come and work for peanuts. You got to go for the ones that are really brilliant and that are able to bring that to the table. And having a low pay doesn't really do that. People aren't willing to leave that job to do that. I mean, I grew up in Frederick County. I want to see Frederick County, continue to be a wonderful place to, raise a family. But in fairness, it's not. It's becoming outpriced, overpriced. Young people can't afford homes. I mean, we're pricing people out every chance we get. When we have people in office that are just obstinate, they don't take the idea of what the community has. They don't have community forums. They don't do things to continue that outreach, to be the conduit. And I always use that term that as a senator, my job is to be the conduit between my community that I represent, my constituent base, to Annapolis. And that conduit, just like it does for electric, it creates that safety tube all the way there. And we transmit all these ideas and all these things that are affecting our community. And it protects it from all the peripheral nonsense, is what I always like to say. These are the ideas that are being brought to me. I'm just in a position that I get to be that conduit. And I'm fortunate to be a part of these ideas. And I stand firm with my constituents and my ideology of, accountability and freedom. And that's what's important, is that we're protecting our freedoms. We're protecting from the state from being too invasive in our personal business. And, as a 30-year police officer, it's important to understand, we need the rule of law to prevail, but we don't need the government in our homes trying to tell us what to do at every step of the way. I don't need them telling me that. I want to be able to go out and protect myself and be free. That's the greatest thing about our country.
I mean, I'm a moderate in the middle, but I don't like big government, and I certainly don't want government telling me what to do or getting in my personal life. These new Democrat socialists, they're all about that government taking over everything.
Well, I mean, look at what they just did about the Glock bill or whatever. I mean, most law enforcement agencies in the state of Maryland carry Glocks. Now, I'm not a big Glock fan. I carried one, but I'm a SIG guy, right? But the General Assembly said, we're gonna outlaw it. It's gonna die a miserable death in court. It's going to be overturned. It is woefully an overreach it is a terrible overreach of the government on the Second Amendment. Any firearm, any pistol can be converted to become fully auto. But to be able to educate these people who have never even held a firearm, don't know anything about them, it's a challenge. And they don't want to listen because they're only listening, like we talked about a minute ago, to those advocates that are coming into their office because they're going to be the champions of getting rid of our gun rights and our ability to protect ourselves and our homes. But you don't hear that same effort on all the crime in these high concentrations of poverty across our state. You don't hear that same effort from these same people going into these communities saying, there's a lot of crime happening here. There's a lot of homicides centralized in these communities. That's a failure, in my opinion. Virtue
signaling. It's all virtue signaling. It's performative politics. They knew that gun ban wasn't going to be able to stand the test of time. They just wanted, it's election coming up. They want people to know that they're by the gum. We're going to take their guns away.
100%.
The funny part, Bill, is like you just said, the part is illegal. It's illegal to install it. It's illegal to own it or possess it. It's illegal to have that altered gun and transport it. The criminals are going to keep on doing all that. They don't care.
There you go. Violation of federal law, it's a violation of state law, it's a felony. And they said, you know what, it's not good enough to do that. homicides of other people in the community in these high concentrations of poverty areas, I don't see that same advocacy to shut that down, to be out there 24 hours a day to keep those communities safe. You don't see that same investment. Why is that? That's what people should be asking.
Of how the Democrats in Maryland operate is that, they take the victims that are the groups that are the suffering the most as victims underneath these laws that they're passing, such as the high crime areas, the high drug areas, the lack of education in the schools. We haven't even touched upon that subject today, but they literally take those groups and give no actual practical consideration to them. The slogans are all about it, but it's almost like the slogans are just an excuse to do what they want. Then when the suffering comes as a result, they literally pay no attention to the suffering of the people in those communities. It is crazy. I have no idea what is going on.
Yeah, I mean, the loss of life at any type of firearm type of crime is terrible, and it's a tragedy. If we're going to have that discussion, and we're going to have a real discussion about it, then we need to talk about the discussions of where the illegal firearms are the ones that are being perpetuated, and these homicides are being done at the hands of those possessing them illegally in the first place. And the accountability beyond that, we're doing more to soften crime in the Maryland and enable criminal activity than we've ever done to stabilize these communities and make accountability an important virtue that people don't want to go back to jail. And if they go to jail for one of these acts, that they stay there.
And another trend we're seeing, especially in these high crime areas, is kids carrying guns. Yep. And these kids are carrying these guns. They're illegal, of course. And, and the Maryland General Assembly just made it harder to prosecute any of those children.
Yeah, we're enabling drug dealers to make young people their mules.
And they absolutely will.
And to hold their drugs because police can't talk to them. And
if they do get arrested, they're going through the juvenile justice system and they'll be out in 2 months anyway.
That's if they're not sent back home that night.
As we have made crimes committed by children legal to be prosecuted, illegal for there to be penalties for, we have basically incentivized career criminals to recruit children to become criminals because they know that the crime will be completed because there will be no consequences.
Yeah, we've created a law that perpetuates this problem far beyond trying to solve it with the wrongdoers now. The Democrats have created a process that incentivizes, in a lot of ways, drug dealers to pay young people to carry their gun for them and be in close proximity. But if they carry that gun for them, they get picked up on it. They can't be prosecuted for it because they're under 14 or they're under 13 or whatever it is. And the police can't talk to you if you're juvenile. So you hold this and I'll pay you a little bit of money. But if I need that gun, you bring me that gun. I need those drugs. You hold those drugs on you because if you get locked up, you'll be out tonight. But if I get locked up, I could face a different charge. So you hold those drugs for me and I'll pay you. So we're creating a literal breeding ground of the next generation of criminal in these high concentration of poverty areas. And instead of looking for ways to buoy these areas up.
Yeah, it's performative politics. They're passing these things, because it's, they believe they're going to get votes out of it. But what it really does, as to Ethan's point, is it endangers these already dangerous communities even more. The people in Maryland that need help the most, the ones in the inner city, the ones in the high crime areas, the high drug areas, it's going to be an absolute nightmare for them.
100%.
Well, Bill, we really appreciate you being on Mid-Maryland Votes. You're one of our favorite guests.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, this has been this episode of Mid-Maryland Votes. I am your host, Mark Flynn. With me is my co-host,
Ethan Lowen.
And we have our very distinguished Senator William Folden, who is working hard for you. So please get out and work hard for him. Thanks again for being on Mid-Maryland Votes. We'll see you next time. Thanks to Senator William Bill Folden, we went behind the curtain on Maryland politics to fight over gerrymandering, the realities of serving in a supermajority legislature, and political changes happening right here in Frederick County. If you enjoy conversations that go beyond the headlines, like, follow, and share Mid-Maryland Votes on both Facebook and YouTube. And we will see you next time on Mid-Maryland Votes.